What's up, everybody, and welcome to Growing Up Gaming, your weekly podcast where we meet a new person of the internet to discuss their childhood with gaming and how it inspired their lives today. My name is Mitch Powell. Again, thank you guys so much for returning each and every week to the show. Hopefully you have subscribed on iTunes or Google Play or pretty much any of the podcast services out there, except for Spotify, because that's apparently not terribly easy to get into. Oh well, whatever, it's fine. Today's guest, his name is Logan Powell. I met this man on the Kind of Funny Facebook group. He was nice enough to ask to be a guest on the show, and of course I said, why not? If you guys ever want to be a guest on the show just like he was, go ahead and send me a tweet at GUG Podcast on Twitter. Also, you could go ahead and send me a tweet personally at MitchPower1116. Again, thank you guys so much for returning each and every week. Don't forget to rate the show on iTunes or Google Play. Also, don't forget to share it with a friend. Hopefully, more people will listen, and the more the merrier. Without further ado, let's get things started with our guest, Logan Powell. Do you remember what got you into gaming or what got you started? Was it a sibling or a friend, or what actually got you started initially?
It would actually be my mom. Ever since I was born, I'm not young, but I'm not old either. I'm 27. So my mom always had a Nintendo. Nintendo came out before I was born. She had one before she had me. And growing up, we had that Nintendo, and it was something that as I got older and old enough to understand, okay, here's the D-pad and A-B, because that's all you needed. We would play Bubble Bobble, Super Mario 1, 2, and 3, and as I got older, we would play Tetris, and then I got addicted to like Tecmo Bowl and Kung Fu. So that kind of got me into the gaming, and when I was older and we would be out, if we had a bowling trip or if my mom used to play softball in a league, they'd have arcades there. So that kind of got me into like Mortal Kombat and was it 1944 and kind of more of the cabinet-based games. So games kind of were always around. I saw them around, and then I just kind of got hooked into it, and it was really her that got me into that with the original Nintendo. We still have it actually packed up and held safe. We wanted to dust it off and bust it out eventually.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, also too, it's nice because when your parents are involved with it, like they at least understand it a bit more, so that way they kind of understand your passion around it and stuff. Because I mean, some parents are completely against it. Some parents would rather you go and do something else besides play games, but then you have the parents that are at least involved or know what's going on or know what it's about, so that way at least it helps, especially when you want to get a new game or whatever. You're like, but mom, there's this cool game that's out, and especially if it's a game she's interested in, then you can kind of help convince her in that way, like, oh hey, wouldn't you want to play this too?
Yeah, that worked really well with anything Nintendo. Like, we didn't have Tecmo Bowl originally. I'm actually not really big into football or sports, but you put me down in front of Tecmo Bowl with another player or even just by myself, I'll play that game for hours and hours. It's addicting in its own way. And when we ended up getting the Super Nintendo when I was about 5 or 6, it was kind of the same thing. Of there were certain games that she would either want to play or watch or didn't mind me playing. There was the Super Castlevania, Super Metroid, Super Mario. Mario has always been a staple, even to this day, in our family. So when my mom I have 2 younger sisters, when she had them, she kind of dropped off the video games of playing them, but she was never anti-video game. There became a point where I was kind of becoming a shut-in, and she'd be like, okay, we have to limit your game time, like, an hour during the week, and then like at the weekends you can go crazy, because I was like, I wasn't going outside. I was like, I gotta play something, especially when the PlayStation 1 came out. It was like, I gotta play this Castlevania Symphony of the Night or Tony Hawk Pro Skater. I was like crazy addicted to Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2. I just could not stop playing those games, and she was like, all right, we're gonna have to cut you off here. You go do something outside. And once we kind of got that balanced out, she was back like, okay, cool, everything's fine.
Yeah, and that's kind of how, like, because I'm a dad, obviously I have 4 kids myself. My son is completely obsessed. That's his favorite hobby and everything, of course, which is not, what a shocker. He likes video games, so do I. But he's been playing from a really young age, but like he actually got to a point where I'm a firm believer of like, if you work and you save your money, you could do what you want with your money. And he ended up getting his own Xbox. He ended up saving money, getting his own TV in his room. And it's a blessing and a curse, because it's like, I'm glad that he has enough drive and willpower to like save his money to get the things he wants. But then also too, he's sitting in his room forever and doesn't want to do anything else. And then now it's starting to get to the point where I had to limit, thank God for like hard limits now, like on, at least on Xbox, there's like family timers where you could straight like hard cut his profile at certain times. So, yeah, that's what I've had to do basically. I'm like, you get X amount, 2 hours during the week on school days, you get 2 hours because I don't want you just sitting here playing this. You got homework to do, you got chores to do. I want you to go out and play with your friends. So, I mean, yeah, I completely get where your mom's coming from too. It's like, you want cause also too, the thing that sucks now is like kids now, that's how they socialize. You know what I mean? They socialize online and, he plays with his friends online, but also too, I'm like, dude, I kind of want you to not just have this be the only thing that makes you happy. You know what I mean? I want you to have other things, be creative in other outlets besides just gaming.
Yeah, go skateboard, go play some baseball, something, anything other than just sitting around. And it is really hard to balance it because, like I said, I have two sisters and they're substantially younger than me. And so they have that, they socialize directly with mainly computer, cell phone technology. And sometimes it's just like, no, we're going to go do something or go hang out with them. Like you almost have to like kick them, incentivize them to go do something. And I don't know exactly what the parental controls are on like PlayStation 4 because that's what I game on. And we don't tend to have a problem with that. If my sisters want to play, it's usually they want to play like a Telltale game. And it's like, all right, well, you're going to be done if you only play an episode, an hour and a half anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
So they enjoy gaming a lot, but they're far more like Nintendo driven than I am. I mean, Nintendo and Sony are kind of my wheelhouse, but you put a Mario game in front of them and they'll play it all day. And then if you put like a PS4 game, my middle sister, she'll be interested and she'll play for a couple hours, but then she kind of wants to go do something else. So we're fortunate that we've never had to instill a timer on them yet. Because they kind of like doing other stuff. But if we have to, it's great that those options are available because, you used to be able to, when the N64 and the N64, the PS1 and like the Super Nintendo, some of those games didn't have save points, right? Or they had save points at certain points. So then it'd be like, all right, your time's up, get off. And you'd have to like, I have to like coax my mom, like, all right, give me 10 minutes. Cause if I don't, I'm going to have to replay this whole level tomorrow. And then that 10 minutes sometimes would turn into 20 if you kept dying. And then they're like, okay, now you're just lying. You're like, no, I swear I'm not lying. I'm not lying. This checkpoint's right here. I just keep dying. Like, just give me another 10 minutes. And sometimes they'd be like, fine. And it wouldn't be a big deal. Or it'd be like, nope. And they'd shut it off. You'd go, damn it.
Yeah, you just be so upset because like you can't go back. You're stuck wherever the last checkpoint was. Now that's the thing with my son because now it's online games because just very recently, and again, thank you, parental controls. I can like limit certain, obviously I can limit what games he plays and stuff, but like I just started getting to a point where I told him, if you keep your grades up, if you do this, this, and this, I'll start letting you play online with your friends. And now that's the excuse. Like, Dad, I'm in the middle of a game right now. I'm in the middle of Overwatch. I can't stop right now. I'll get booted and I won't be able to play later. Like, that's the new excuse now. Instead of checkpoints or save points or whatever, now it's like, Dad, I'm in the middle of I can't stop this Titanfall game right now. I'll be booted. I won't be able to play later on. I'm like, and the thing that sucks is that I know that's true. Like, I've played those games and I'm like, yeah, there are quit like penalties and stuff in games. And I'm like, all right, I get it. Hurry up, finish this game. But then if I'm not paying attention, he'll slip another one in. I'm like, dude, there's no way that game, you started another one. No, I swear. I'm like, nope.
Yeah, that last timer said 7 minutes. How'd it get back to 20 then?
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, hey, real quick, I saw the score and it was lower now. How is that possible, Alex? I swear. I'm like, dude, get off it. You're done. Like, that's what you gotta do now. So, and again, though, at least I feel bad for the parents that are out there who aren't as informed because, like, you know what I mean? Like, kids will just say and do whatever and the parents have no idea. So they just kind of go along with it. They're just like, okay, I guess that's the case. So, you know what I mean? That's the only benefit, at least I have of knowing all the ins and outs of the systems and knowing, the settings and all that stuff. So thank God. But also too, I mean, it's just mostly the time and stuff. I just want them to go out, but I have ran across that situation, like you were saying earlier with like how kids communicate now. I've literally ran across a situation where my son, my daughter, and their friend were all upstairs playing on the phones in the same room. And I'm like, are you guys kidding me right now? Like, you guys are in the loft right now. No one's talking. You're just playing on phones together. I'm like, all right, I can't do this. That was that old man moment in me where I just walked downstairs. I'm like, all right, I'm done. I can't handle this right now. This is too much. Talk. You guys are in the same room. Please stop to play on your phone.
Yeah, any more of that and you'll be that, get off my lawn, kind of deal. Yeah.
I'm just going to be that old dude. Get off the phones. Get off. Go get out of the house. Yeah, I'm just going to turn into that dude. So, and then, yeah, again, I just have to kind of see how kids are doing it now, socializing more online and stuff. Even in the same room, which I literally walked upstairs. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. You guys are just not even talking to each other. But, like, my kids have gotten better about being social, at least getting out of the house. And, there are moments where I will straight just go, get out. You're not doing anything. Just leave the house, please. Go do something. Find a friend. I don't care. Go do something. So, but again, like, I don't think when I was younger I had that kind of problem because I had video games, but there was other times where I would just want to hang out with my friends and stuff. You know what I mean? Like, go play basketball or just, go for a while, for a couple years. I didn't play any games. I was out skateboarding every day. So, that was my thing. So, but everybody's got their own vices and their own things. So that's all right. So then you, at least, like I said, did you ever play games with your mom and your siblings and all that stuff? Like any co-op games or anything?
Yeah, with my mom, we mainly, even to this day, we mainly stick to, Nintendo is kind of like the family, console, family company that we go for. Like, we have, obviously, like the Wii, which was a big deal when that came out for my family, and the Wii U, and we bought, on the Wii U, and the Wii, transferred it to the Wii U. We bought the Bubble Bobbles, the Super Marios, all the games that we had on the original Nintendo. We were like, well, everything's going HD. This Nintendo is 20, 30 years old. We should probably get the digital versions. So even to this day, we sometimes still play the original Super Mario Brothers, 1, 2, and 3, Bubble Bobble, the Excite Bikes, and as the Wii came around, my sisters got into like the Super Smash Brothers and everything else like that. So we still, mainly my mom and I would play, like, her favorite game to play is Bubble Bobble, even to this day. I mean, that game came out in the 1980s, and I could walk into the room right now and be like, hey, let's play Bubble Bobble. And she's like, all right, I'm down. Let's do it. And that was just one of those games. And I think as controllers and stuff evolved, like, my mom's more than capable of playing a PlayStation 4 controller and Xbox controller, but she really more likes the Nintendo, like, all right, I got my D-pad, my 2 buttons, I can't screw this up, where even I was just playing last night, everyone's on the Persona craze. I, beat Platinum Persona 5, and I went back to Persona 4, I don't know, a couple days ago, just to see, and I forgot how different it is, because that game is almost 10 years old now. So when I started playing it, I was screwing up the controls, and it's the same controller. I plug it in through a PS TV, and I use a PS4 controller, because I got a PS TV for like $10 when they bombed.
Right, when they clearance those things out real fast.
Yeah. So I was like, cool, well, I liked Persona 4. Now I can play Golden and get trophies, and cool, now I could just spend $10, spend $30 on the game, $40, and I can play it. So I used the same controllers I did for Persona 5, and I was all over the place, running into walls because the cameras are different. I was like trying to hit one button that's like, okay, to summon an ability in Persona 5, but it doesn't do that in Persona 4 because it's more of just it's more like the old Persona games and Final Fantasy games where you use the D-pad and it's like, okay, select attack or magic or skill or anything like that. I was sitting there, I'm like, she kind of has a point now that I think about it, because even between similar games and consoles, sometimes the controls I'll screw up. Like, I'm dreading going back to Horizon when the Frozen Wilds comes out, because I'm probably going to have the same issue. I haven't played Horizon since I Platinum and beat it, so I'm going to probably have to take a week before that DLC comes out, because if not, I'm going to do the same thing, run into stuff, jump off of stuff, and probably die a lot.
Yeah, I think the only thing that happens like that for me, for the most part, I mean, most of the games I'm cool with, but for me, the only thing I get weird on is, and this is kind of my own doing, but I have an Elite controller for the Xbox One, and you can custom config all the shoulder pads and like sensitivity levels and all that stuff. And the only thing that throws me off is when I'm playing different shooters. If I'm playing Halo 5, am I playing Titanfall 2, am I playing Overwatch? I have like different configurations, but also just how varied the games are. Like cause you could switch back and forth between 2 different configurations on the fly. And I'll be playing using Elite Control and I'm like, man, what the hell? Am I shitty now? Like, what's going on? Why am I sucking so bad? And then I'm like, oh yeah. Click, and then all of a sudden I'm fine again. It's just like, it's so odd how your brain gets so used to certain things, and then out of nowhere, like you swap one game, and it's just, you feel stupid. You feel like you're not playing it right. But yeah, I mean, again, it's just a matter of, it's a lot of the times though, most shooters for the most part are similar, but I mean, now there's so much of a variety out there now. Like Call of Duty for the most part, like if you've played Call of Duty, you've played Call of Duty. Like you could go from one to another and that's fine, but to go from like Halo to Call of Duty to Battlefield to Titanfall to Overwatch, like it's just so different. I mean, even like in-game things too, like you were saying, controls and stuff, but also in-game stuff like bullet trails, like, having to trail the person you're trying to shoot instead of in some games where you don't have to do that. So yeah, it gets kind of crazy, but I mean, at least it's funny too, because back in the day, most platformers were platformers. The only thing you had to really go about learning was how much did you had those really floaty ones where you jump and you kind of hang in the air for too long, and then you had the real ones, like the actual like solid ones, the ones that you had down muscle memory that were way easier. But that was the only thing we had to deal with back then, was just, is this a floaty platformer? Is this like a solid, is it good? Is there no hang time like this or whatever? That was the only thing that threw me off with, I don't know if you ever played it, but like the Disney, some of the earlier Disney, like Aladdin and that type of stuff, they are like, super floaty.
Yeah, no, I never actually owned, because those were all on mainly, wasn't it primarily Sega consoles that had the Disney stuff? If I remember correctly, was it mainly Genesis?
I think they were on both. Possibly. I had a Genesis when I was a kid, so I don't, I remember playing them on Genesis, but I'm pretty sure they were also on Super. But no, I mean, like, like the Genesis, I definitely know for a fact, like, Aladdin, Lion King, those are the 2 I remember for sure, but they were like those Capcom, Disney, those types of games.
Yeah,
so.
I do know what those were floaty, because I had a family member who had a Genesis, and we'd go hang out with them, and me and my cousin would play, and Aladdin and Lion King were kind of the 2 that we would play. And I remember being like, this doesn't play like Mario. I'd get really confused. I'm like, Mario wouldn't jump that way. That was like my thought process, because Mario was like the platformer as far as I was concerned. I played the original 3. And so when we would play them, I'd always be like, why is Aladdin jumping like 30 feet this way? I'm like, Mario doesn't do that. And I got really frustrated as a kid, because I wasn't sure how to,
time.
It was because I was so much younger when those came out that I was like, I understand the concept, but it's not like now where it's like, okay, I got to jump a little less, or I got to pull back a little bit, or I got to go for broke, or, back then it was just like, okay, if I jump, it'll do like what Mario did. And it never did. I was like, what the hell? I'd get really like frustrated. So I spent more time watching those games than playing them. I really did like the Power Rangers beat 'em up though, and I think that was on the Genesis. That was one that I was like super into, was a super Power Rangers kid, because I grew up with them. Like, they were popular right as I was a kid. So that Power Rangers game I did spend a lot of time playing with friends. I know that was, I think, primarily a Genesis one as well.
Yeah, I remember that game fondly because my mom got it for me for Christmas, and then I've told this before, but my mom got it for me for Christmas, and I was all excited, and then I beat it in like 30 minutes, and she was super pissed off. She was like, "Are you kidding me right now?" I'm like, again, like when you're a stupid kid and you just see Power Rangers and you see a video game, you're like, "I want that. How could this be bad?" And it's not necessarily it's bad. And the thing is, I haven't gone back to it yet. Because again, like sometimes you go back to games that you thought were awesome and they're kind of trash. So you don't really want to do that. But I just remember beating the game so quickly. And I remember it just, I walked, because I brought my Genesis to my grandma's house, because that's where we opened all of our gifts, like Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. And I remember taking it into the room, hooking it up, literally popping the game in, beating it. And of course you could beat it over and over, but I just initially beat it. And then I walked out, like, literally, I think it was like 30 or 45 minutes later, and I was like, hey, Mom, I beat the game. And I remember this look on her face, like, she probably went through hell to find that. And then I just beat it in 30 minutes. She's just like, really? You beat it that soon? I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to, I guess. Like, but again, you can go back and play it. So that was the other thing that was weird, too, is like, most games now, if it comes out on multiple systems, they're relatively the same. You know, you could always argue like, oh, this system looks better because it has 1080p instead of that, like, whatever, right? But like content-wise, they're pretty much identical. Back then, like, some games were entirely different. Like, it's so weird because it was like almost two different people making the game, but they were both, you know, like a Power Rangers game on Genesis might have been completely different than it was on Super Nintendo.
Yeah, absolutely. And no, I kind of spaced out there for a second, but no, I agree that it was so weird that when I would talk to friends as a kid, be like, oh, hey, do you check out this game? And they'd talk about a part I had no idea what they were talking about. And I'd be like, oh, that's not in my version. You know, it's kind of like, I guess more for simplicity's sake, it's kind of like in the PS2 era, it might have been PS3 era, where like the Soul Caliburs were multi-platform, but they had different characters. And so I'd be like, yeah, I played as Darth Vader. And you're like, wait, I don't have Darth Vader. Why don't I have Darth Vader? And then you go back and you're like, oh, I guess Xbox has Yoda and PlayStation has Darth Vader or whatever. And so you get like these different experiences just from that. It's not as quite as good of an analogy, but it's kind of the same of different items being in different platforms and kind of having the different experiences from it. But I was fortunate enough that I very, very rarely dealt with that. I ended up being more like playing, like you said, with my mom, since she was the one. We played a lot of those old games, and I wouldn't say I didn't get behind, but I got a Super Nintendo, I don't know, 2 or 3 years after it came out, and that's where I really got hooked on certain style of games, and most of them were single player. Final Fantasy VI, which was 3 at the time on Super Nintendo, was the one game that like really, really reeled me in, and it was even though I was younger and didn't quite get all of the moving parts of the game, I was like, cool, I can be this thief, and I can name it myself, and I can be friends with a knight and a mage, and I can go do all this stuff, and I'm going to go save the world. It was like the first time, I was probably about 6 when I got to play it, and it was really like eye-opening, because, you know, back then we had like Batman the Animated Series and Power Rangers, but Power Rangers had the game you could play of Power Rangers, and you had the Nintendo Batman game, which was really fun and awesome, but it was hard for a kid.
Right.
It was really hard for me. I don't think
really hard.
Yeah,
yes.
I never beat that game as a kid because it was that hard. I get through like the first 2 levels and I'd be like, cool, awesome. And then after that, I could never get any further until I was much older. So it was cool to have a game that it was like, cool, I have all these different characters and they're not like Warner Brothers or Fox or any of those characters, like a licensed game or a Disney game. And I could kind of create this, like there's this huge narrative. And that's really, I think, what really gripped me into games permanently was Final Fantasy VI, and that's my favorite game of all time. Even older, I went back, like you said, sometimes you go back and play a game like, is this game really as good as I remember it being? You go back and like, holy crap, this is horrible.
Yeah, like this is trash. This is real bad.
Did you ever play the Home Alone 2 game on Super Nintendo?
No, I did not.
Oh man, I went back and played it, I don't know, couple years ago, probably 3-4 years ago. I was at a friend's house who had it. He got a Super Nintendo on sale and like a huge rack of games, and that was one of them. I'm like, man, I haven't played this game in a long time. So I put it in, and I was like, why did I ever play this game? And obviously it came out and I played it. I was like I said, 5 or 6, and that game is horrible. It is just absolutely terrible, and like a lot of it doesn't make sense. It's halfway tied into Home Alone 2, and like the controls are funky, and like and for me the basis was always Mario anyway, and so there's like some platforming stuff, and Macaulay Culkin, Kevin's character, you know, Kevin doesn't move the same way. Some actions you can like slide and run into stuff, but that works for some stuff and not other stuff, and they don't really tell you, so you have to kind of figure it out, so you die a lot. And I was just like, I never want to play this game again. I don't remember why I like this. And I just took it out, and I'm like, yeah, dude, you should probably get rid of that.
Yeah, I mean, and that was always the thing, too, is like, what sucked is like back then, and I mean, this is still kind of the case, which they don't really do it as much anymore, because now they've kind of shifted it more towards mobile, but like those movie tie-in games or like licensed tie-in games, some of them were just straight trash, and then some of them are actually really good. Like, some of them hold up really well. But yeah, like when you said Home Alone, I'm just sitting there thinking, man, they actually made a Home Alone video game. Like they had, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like the only fun part, it's not like the only fun part was getting away from burglars. So it's, you know, like trying to, Harry and Lloyd trying to make sure that you hurt them as much as you could. But I mean, like, how much of a game can you make out of that? You know what I mean? But then, of course, I'm sure they had like other enemies and different weird things that weren't even a part of the damn movie that were in there. And then, you know, now it's kind of, for the most part, like they had those types of movie tie-in games, and most of them suck. Like they mostly do for the, you know, like a majority of them are not good. But now they've kind of shifted to where they don't even do most of the movie tie-in games now. On home consoles. Like I see a lot of mobile phone ports of games, like mobile phone versions of like Avengers and stuff. And I don't even want to bother because I'm just like, I'm not doing this. I remember like, you know, obviously some of the good ones were like the Disney ones and stuff, like, you know, Aladdin, Lion King, like those were good. And again, like they were good, but also just different as far as like a platforming goes and everything. But I remember I like when they do the movie tie-in games, but it's kind of, just the name of it for the most part is that, but then they let the people kind of do their own thing. Like some of them are trash, but then there was like Spider-Man 2 on PS2, which I don't know if you ever played that, but that game is phenomenal. Like that game is so good, and it barely follows the Spider-Man 2 movie. You know, like it has some, you know, Doc Ock's in it. Hooray. Wonderful. But like just the gameplay of it was really good. And then there was this Wolverine game, like X-Men Origins Wolverine game that they had on, I want to say, I think it was PS2 era as well, or it might have been 360. I don't remember exactly, but that game was like mature rated and it was violent and it was crazy as hell. And I was like, dude, holy crap. Like this game's really good too. And again, the only thing it shared mostly was the name of the movie, but they let the studio kind of like have free reign and do what they wanted to do. So I always thought that was awesome. I was like, yeah, dude, that's really cool that, you know, some of those tie-ins are good, but yeah, some are straight trash. Did you, so you were saying how RPGs like that, you know, specific Final Fantasy game kind of locked you into it and everything. Did you, when you continued down your gaming, did you kind of said you stuck with Nintendo then? So did you just go straight to 64 then? Because unfortunately that wasn't a good RPG machine at the time.
Yeah, actually, that was the weird, I don't want to say weird, but the interesting kind of turning point for me and my family was we bought Nintendo, Super Nintendo while my mom had Nintendo, got the Super Nintendo when I was younger, played pretty much every major game that you could think of on Super Nintendo. And then, you know, the Game Boy came out, so I got the Game Boy as well and kind of went crazy with that. Like I said, Pokemon, the, you know, red, blue, gold, silver, those are right in my age wheelhouse where that was the thing. You know, everybody was doing it. And so the weird thing that ended up happening was I actually wanted a PlayStation. And so as time went on, like I said, I was about 2 years late to the PlayStation game. Because if I remember correctly, PlayStation 1 came out in, 95, and we got it in 97, probably a couple months before Final Fantasy 7 had come out, and I had saw screenshots in, like, a magazine when we'd go to the store, and I was like, Final Fantasy is going to be on this. That was kind of what stuck.
Right.
So I was like, instead of getting the N64, which I still got, I was very fortunate that I didn't grow up super wealthy. I did work for some of my stuff. As a kid, and, you know, doing chores, and I did save. And then, you know, my family really emphasized, like, okay, birthdays and Christmas are like if you really want something and you behave and you, like you said, get good grades, get good attendance, you know, stuff like that, then obviously you're going to get something better. Like I got my N64 because I was a straight A student as a kid for Christmas. And I was, you know, perfect attendance, straight A's. Went crazy with that, so I ended up getting N64 after the PS1, but the PS1 was what I really wanted because I was like, oh, well, Final Fantasy 6, I gotta play as, like I said, you know, you get to play as Terra and Locke and Edgar. I was like, they have all these different characters. I can play as a knight or a mage, and there's magic, and there's this cool stuff, you know, kind of really delving into that RPG fantasy. So I ended up getting a PS1, and that was kind of the turning point of, now my family is very, like I said, Sony and Nintendo are the wheelhouse in my family. Like, I've never owned any Microsoft Xbox products ever. Just never have. And not because I don't have anything against Microsoft. It's just they've never really had anything that stuck to me. Fable was the only game that I saw that I was like, wow, this could be cool. But I was like, do I really want to spend $300 on a 360 for Fable? Or, $300 on an Xbox and for Fable, and it just never stuck. So, I got the PS1 and then the N64 later for that. And like I said, I ended up getting addicted mainly to, I played Crash Bandicoot a lot. Wasn't good at it, obviously, because that game is hard. And then
it's actually harder now. Like, I don't know if people can tell that remake, it's harder. Like, I don't care. I didn't get older. That game is harder. And it's funny because it's like a conspiracy. Like, did they mess with the game or something? Because like so many people came out was like, is anybody noticing how hard this damn game is now? Like, people forget.
I have my own theory about it and this sounds kind of stupid, but like, Crash Bandicoot came out, like I said, I was like the perfect age for like the Crash Bandicoots and the Tony Hawks and the Pokemon, and like though like my demographic a little bit older as well was the wheelhouse, right? Like we were the ones screaming at our parents like, I gotta get the new Tony Hawk game, or I gotta get this game, give me this. Like, you're begging, instead of begging for the cereal or a football, you're begging for the, whatever game was coming out. And I honestly think that part of why Crash Bandicoot, the Insane Trilogy, is harder, especially the first one, is because now we all have lives, right? You have children, you have jobs, you have responsibilities. When I was 6, 7 years old, on a Saturday, I could get up, watch my cartoons, right? Watch my Power Rangers, watch my Pokemon, watch whatever, and then I could spend 6 hours playing Crash Bandicoot. I could die as many times as I wanted, and within that 6 hours, I was going to get through that level. Now, you play Crash Bandicoot, it's still the same difficulty, but it's kind of like, oh, I got 20 minutes, I can do this. And then you realize 20 minutes isn't enough. And then, like you said, you're sitting there going, why is this game so damn hard? I can't do it. And you get frustrated because, like, I did this as a kid. I can do this now. And then you're going, well, as a kid, you could spend 2 hours on one level and not make a difference anywhere because you're a kid,
Very true. No, that makes sense. Cause like you said, as you get older, as you get more responsibilities, like, back then we wanted games to last forever. Like we didn't want shorter games. Like we wanted games that lasted forever. And that's why so many people dug RPGs, cause they lasted forever. Now, as I'm older, if I hear a game, like example, The Witcher 3, fantastic game, awesome game. Way too much for me. Like I literally, I'm one of those people that I try to clear the map. I try to do this, and I spent 45 hours in the game, and I looked at the map and I had done nothing. And I'm just like, I can't do this game. I just can't. Like it's too much for me. But then when I hear a game is like 10 hours long now, I get all excited. I'm like, oh man, I feel like I could get that game and beat it and feel like I accomplished something. Again, not shitting on The Witcher. It's an incredible game, but for like, I want to, if I play a game, I don't want to play a game and just feel like there's no end in sight, like I just want to beat a game, feel like I accomplished it, and then kind of move on. So yeah, like that, again, awesome game. But dude, when I played it literally 45 hours, I'm like, this is a really good game. And then as soon as I pulled up that map and saw that I had done nothing in that giant world, I was like, all right, I can't do this. I know it's good. I have an informed opinion. It's good, but I can't do this anymore. So that's kind of where I have gone now, but everybody's different. Yeah, there's still people out there who are older, who have all the time in the world, and good for them because they can do 100, 200, 300, 400 hours of a game and be happy about it. So,
yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I would say I'm in between. I have more time on my hands because I don't have children. I help take care of my family, like with my sisters and stuff, but I'm not 100% tied down, so I still have responsibilities, still got to pay the bills, all that. But at the same time, I don't have my own children, so it's easier for me to, if I want to take a weekend and be like, hey, I'm going to invest 6 hours into The Witcher, I can. I was kind of the same with The Witcher. I ended up mainlining the story of like, okay,
right,
I'm not
just focus on the story.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not going to go and explore, because I'm usually the same way. I was like, hey, because, you go explore some weird part of the map, you get some cool weapon, or you get some new side quest, or, most games, most RPGs are like that in some fashion. The more you explore, the more rewarded you are in some fashion, whether it's with more story or items or something. And with The Witcher, I was like, I'm not doing this. I was like, I'm going to mainline the story, and I understand that there's side quests that are even just as good or better than some parts of the story, but I can't, like you said, I can't commit to 80, 90 hours in a short period of time. Because, sometimes you might be like, hey, I want to play Overwatch and just kill some stuff, or play GTA 5 and drive around and run people over or whatever. Some people just kind of want to zone out when they play a game. But then you go back to The Witcher a week later and you're like, what was going on? What was I doing?
Right. Yeah. Especially those heavy story games. Because sometimes I feel bad, especially like that's why certain games like that, they almost require your full attention. Like you have to have that commitment. You have to have that time to put into it, because if you come back 2 months later, you're like, I don't even know what the fuck I'm doing right now. Like, who am I trying to help? Where do I need to go? What's the mission? What's the side? And some games do a decent job of like telling you, this is what you're doing. This is where you need to go and stuff. But like some games just straight don't. I did the same thing, like you're saying with Fallout. I bought Fallout in the season pass when it first came out just because I was told it was awesome, and I didn't really play many Fallout games before that. But when I found out again, it was one of those types of games again, and I bought the season pass, so I didn't want to just waste the money I bought. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to mainline. I'm not going to do any of the side shit. I'm literally just going to blast through this story mode, and anything that was like side or extra, I avoided like the plague. I was like, nope, where's main mission? Whatever says main mission, that's my goal right now. And, yeah, I got through all that story and all that stuff, which again, even with me mainlining the game, it was still 40 or 50, 60 hours, whatever, with all the DLC. Like, it was crazy still. Even not doing all that side shit, it was still ridiculous. Same thing with Metal Gear 5. Like, that's how I treated Metal Gear 5. I didn't do any of the side stuff, as much as I wanted to, because that game's incredible. But like, yeah, even main story, it still took forever.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, Metal Gear 5 was one of those, I don't want to say time sinks, but there was something about that game that, yeah, parts of the story were missing. They never finished part 3. Kojima got screwed by Konami. Like, we all know that.
So bad.
But at the same time, even with all of that missing, it was almost like when I said, like, the Tony Hawk Pro Skater, I got, like, addicted to, like, okay, I got to get a better time. I got to get an A ranking. I got to get an S ranking. I got to do this. And there was something inherently addictive about that game, and I don't have an addictive personality. I don't like go gamble and go crazy with that kind of stuff. So when something hooks me like that, especially as an adult, there's something there that I think people don't realize. Like, holy crap, like that game, like you said, is amazing, even though there's only 2 huge maps in that. You play the same 50 missions, but I'll still go back and be like, I'm going to try and S rank this. I can't for whatever reason, because I'm not apparently that good, even though I've played Metal Gear since Metal Gear Solid 1 came out. But
right.
That game is just, there's something, like you said, like even when you mainline it, it's like I want to go back because the gameplay's so good and I can do all this cool stuff, and you can balloon a goat if you want to be humorous, and like it actually can come in handy if you want.
That was like my thing. As soon as I was able to upgrade the Fulton or whatever, I did that to everything. I was like, I don't give a shit. I'm like, trucks, everything I saw, if I could shoot that thing into the sky and get it out of there, I did it. I Fultoned every person. Like, I was one of those people, like in Metal Gear, I was trying not to kill people, trying not to be seen. I would just use the trank and just like put everyone to sleep, and then I would just Fulton everybody out of there. It was just so fun. Like, who cares? Whatever. It didn't matter. I just kept Fulton people out of there. So yeah, that's, that gameplay is literally, I keep telling people that story doesn't make a damn bit of sense. I don't care if you're into Metal Gear as much as possible. That story is just all over the damn place. But that gameplay loop is ridiculous. The only game I'm super competitive on like that, or addictive personalities wanting a better time, is Trials. For the most part, Trials was on Xbox, but Trials Fusion came out on PS4 and Xbox One. And that's the one game that, like, I'm like, I need platinum. I have to get a platinum on this. I have to get this time. And then if I saw one of my friends beat my time, I like obsessively kept playing it over and over until I was number 1 on my friends list again. That's the only game that I do that with. Otherwise, I'm like, I don't give a shit if you're better than me. But like, Trials is the one game that I was like so confident in being the best in that I was just like, I have to keep this up. So then you went, like you said, you got PlayStation, you had N64. Did you continue, like, did you eventually go, like you said, like Wii, you said you got Wii, did you go PS2 as well then? Like, just continue both those trains then?
Yeah, my family, the past is kind of weird, because with my family being the Nintendo, PlayStation wheelhouse, I got a PS2, and it was the same thing that by the time that came out, I believe I was in junior high. It was around that time. I saved up my own money and ended up. At first, the PlayStation 2 came out, and it was Metal Gear Solid 2 had come out. I had played Metal Gear Solid 1 on the PlayStation 1, and that was one of those games that I think, like most people who played that game, regardless of age, if they somewhat understood what was going on, they knew that game was really special.
Absolutely.
That you're playing pretty much a movie, and that obviously now we're looking today, that game came out 20 years ago almost, and now more games are like Metal Gear than ever when they have storylines and these cinematic moments that I feel without that game, we would be further behind in that kind of storytelling. And so Metal Gear Solid 2 came out, right around the time the PS2 came out. I was like, I really want this. And my family was like, well, you're definitely at that age now. Like, no more, we're not going to be buying these consoles like crazy, based on your behavior. You're going to have to save. So I saved. And the funny thing was that I saved, and then Kingdom Hearts was about to come out. And I kind of forgot about Metal Gear because I was still younger. And,
Right.
Metal Gear Solid, like, being younger when that game came out, I think I was 8 when that game came out. It may have been 9. 8 or 9. Like, you can understand basic plot points in pretty much any game by that point, but you really don't understand the intricacies and the nuance of the character development and everything else. You really don't grasp that until you're much older,
Right.
So Kingdom Hearts was coming out, and I was like, like I said, I'm still young at that point. Kingdom Hearts, I believe, came out when I was 11, and I was like, cool, Disney characters. I'm totally on board for this because I was a Disney kid growing up too. So I was like, they got Nightmare Before Christmas, which was my favorite, Disney movie. Yeah, well, Touchstone, but that's a different argument.
Right. No, I got you.
It was my favorite Disney movie, and it had Aladdin, and it had The Little Mermaid, and it had Alice in Wonderland. It had all these things that, along with Nintendo, I grew up on Disney. Everything was Disney. We saw all the Disney movies. They were something that it's instilled in my blood even to this day. So I saw that, and I was like, oh my god, I get to play as a character that gets to go to all these Disney worlds, and I get to see these characters interact with them, and I was like hooked. So that I saved money for the PS2, got the PS2, and went straight into Kingdom Hearts. And the thing was, I only had enough money to get either the PlayStation 2 and a game, or a PlayStation 2 and a memory card. And
I always hated that.
And as a kid, I was just like, you know what? Screw it. I want the game. I'll leave the damn PlayStation on if I have to until I can get the memory card. And so I got the game, and I played on Destiny Island and Kingdom Hearts just over and over because I originally was leaving it on when I went to school, and then I think like the power went out, or like the electric company was doing work, and so they're like, oh, your power is going to be shut off. And I came home and I'm like, well, I'm not doing that anymore. I was like, I'll just wait to get the memory card.
Yeah, like that was a cruel thing to realize. Like, memory cards, the hell's a memory card? Like, especially if you weren't aware of it. Like, wait a minute, games don't save? What are you talking about? I mean, obviously PS1 and everything, like, that's how I learned it, but back and then, cartridges saved everything. What do you mean memory cards? That was a cruel. And then also, of course, when you had so many games, you got to a point where you're like, shit, I gotta clear space on this. Or you had one of those like 3 times, 4 times like third party memory cards that would occasionally sometimes just erase everything. So yeah, that was always a fun time.
Yeah, that was definitely. And my problem was that I didn't ever. At that point, I didn't read into it. I was like, oh, I could just use my PlayStation 1 memory card because I knew that they could go in. So right. I was thinking that it was going to be like a backwards compatible memory card. Like, cool, I can just use that. And, of course, to my disappointment, obviously you find out that it wasn't the case. I found out, a couple of days before I got the PlayStation 2. So that's when I got into that point. If I would have known previously, right, like, my family just put a Switch on layaway, and my mom's been interested in the Switch for the family, for everything else, for my sisters and everything else. But she keeps track of video game stuff here and there, but, since it's a relatively big hobby of mine, I keep track of it. So I told her, I was like, you have to get, an SD card. And I said, it has internal memory to a degree, but it's like, if you get Zelda for the, and the Mario's coming out and anything else, you're going to need an external. And
Right.
Now it's better to keep track of that kind of stuff. And most consoles, like the Xbox and the PS4, have internal memory, so you don't have to worry about it anymore. You just have to make sure you have the space. But yeah, that PS2 era, I was ended up being a really big deal for me for the RPGs as well. As you talked about, and I ended up playing the PS2 more as the RPG machine, even though the N64 had Zelda, and I didn't get a GameCube. It was kind of a weird thing. My family, we didn't ever get a GameCube. I think it was mainly because I had Final Fantasy X. I could play Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9 on those. I was playing Tony Hawk Underground, Tony Hawk Underground 2. Amplitude was on there. Music is my music is like my number one, and video games kind of fall under. And I never asked for a GameCube despite having, like the Zeldas and Mario Sunshine and all that other stuff. I just kind of let it go. And so we never got one. So I ended up just sticking directly to PlayStation 2 when the GameCube came out. And once again, like I said, never owned a Microsoft console. So I didn't have an Xbox, didn't have a GameCube. I just strictly played PS2 at that point, and I was just going crazy with all those games. Like I said, Tony Hawk ended up being a big deal to the point where I'd go over to friends' houses, and even on Xbox, I personally am not a fan of the Xbox controller. I understand why people like it. It's just I'm inherently, I guess, biased and brainwashed to a DualShock. I've had it since I was 5-6 years old, and so that controller just makes sense to me. It's not like Nintendo where every controller is different, so you kind of got to get used to it. The DualShock, it was the same up until the 4. And I'd go over and play Xbox, and I would play Tony Hawk 4 or Tony Hawk Underground with my friends, and I would just annihilate all of them. And they'd be like, yeah, man, I spent 2 hours getting really good. And they're like, look, I got 200,000 points, and I'm pushing 1 million. And they were like, what are you doing? What do you just play all the time? I'm like, dude, I told them, I'm like, when I'm not hanging out with you guys, when we're not doing stuff, I'm playing Tony Hawk again. Those games, if I wasn't playing an RPG with a story, I was playing Tony Hawk all the time. And it was just insane. My family would come in you're still playing Tony Hawk? I'd be like, yes, I gotta break this 1 million combo. I gotta do it. I'm almost there, and then just, it was insane. And like I said, just never played the GameCube, never owned one. And, I'm hoping that with the Switch, that when the Virtual Console, if it ever comes out at this point, because, they're taking forever, I'm hoping that I can go back and play the games I missed out on. Because on the 64, when I got the 64, I played, Mario 64, I played Majora's Mask, Ocarina of Time, I played all the Star Wars games, because Star Wars is a big deal in my family. So I was kind of caught up on those monumental everyone plays games. And then the GameCube, I flat out, I missed Mario Sunshine, I missed the the Twilight Princess until that went to the Wii. So I missed out on a lot of those. So I ended up being PS2, which, look at the sales numbers, almost everyone was playing PS2 at that point. So
yeah, PS2 sold more than Xbox and GameCube, I'm pretty sure, combined. PS2 was just a outrageous seller. There was there are some good games on each, every that's the thing, is that every system has decent games that are great, but also it's a matter of if you give a shit to pay for an entire console if there's only 1 or 2 of those games. And that's kind of with me, I'm primarily Xbox, but I have a PlayStation because I know there are PlayStation exclusive games that are worth it. But, that's kind of my exclusive machine. And for a while there, that's kind of the same thing what it was for GameCube and stuff. GameCube is a good console and it has good games, but also too, if it was multi-platform, you played it on PlayStation. It didn't matter. Or yeah, I guess everybody had their own preference, right? Everybody has their, and it's still to this day, everybody has their own preference, but that was the big thing. GameCube, the 64 for RPGs and stuff, it had the Zelda games, but other than that, there, like I said, as soon as Sony got Final Fantasy and Square, and then everyone and their mother started making everything for PlayStation, because once PS2 was the big success, that's where every amazing RPG came out. GameCube had Wind Waker, which then eventually got put to Wii U. And there's obviously more that I'm probably not bringing up and everything, but overall though, there are some decent games on GameCube. Sunshine I liked a lot, even though some people will argue Sunshine's better than 64, and I don't know how I feel about that, but Sunshine was a good game. And yeah, hopefully the Switch, when Virtual Console whenever that happens. Hopefully they'll do the GameCube backward compatible games. And the other thing too, like for me, for example, I didn't even play the original Smash Brothers on 64. I actually played, Melee first, and I fell in love with the game, and I would have Smash tournaments all the time at my house, and, Smash drinking games, because I was not old enough to drink yet, but old enough to get alcohol still. But like, that was, those are games that, like, other things too. Like, I remember Resident Evil 4 coming out on GameCube first, and dude, I beat that game on GameCube so many times, and it's like still one of my favorite games I've ever played. And then eventually it went to PS2, and then everybody else got to play it. But, each system was kind of cool in their own regard for their own exclusives, and that's still to this day. I mean, it sucks because if you want to play the best of everything, you kind of have to have everything, but it just depends too. Like, I would say I like Xbox because also I like Halo and Gears, and, those are two of my favorite franchises. So of course I'm more drawn to Xbox, but also too, if you don't give a shit about shooters, like the Xbox doesn't have Persona 5. It doesn't have like a plethora of all these like Neo or Nier Automata. Like, it doesn't have all these awesome RPGs. So, I mean, you just kind of have to narrow down what you really like. I always find it funny that it seems like everybody has their preference, like Xbox or PlayStation, but then everybody's cool with Nintendo. Like, everybody's like, well, no, you still have to have that because you still have to play Mario Kart and Smash and Zelda and all those. So that's always the funny part of it.
Yeah, I agree. I do think it's funny because almost anybody I talk to, it's always like, yeah, I have an Xbox One and and a Switch, or they're planning on getting a Switch, or like my family, we have a PS4, and we are now have a Switch on layaway for the holiday. And it was kind of like you said, the same exact thing, that I've never really had anything against Xbox, but the RPG machine is kind of where I always go. If tomorrow Sony was like, we're never doing RPGs again, and Xbox was like, we're doing all the RPGs, I'd get rid of my PS4 and like get an Xbox. Maybe not, but you know what I mean? I would be, I would be like, all right, guess I'm going to Xbox. That's kind of what has always pushed or pulled me, was that the RPG thing. I was like, Final Fantasy was on Sony consoles starting with 7, so I was like, all right, well, this is where I'm at. This is where I'm going. And even to this day, I'm still the same way. You have the Uncharted, The Last of Us, Final Fantasy games now are on Xbox and PlayStation, but I have this inherent bias that old 16-bit and like 2D belong on like Nintendo, and like the 3D ones belong on PlayStation. And that's like a stupid idiosyncrasy in my head that I have, because I think, if Square wants to put anything on Xbox, that they should. I don't think that it should be PlayStation only. I'm not like elitist like that. It just seems odd when I say like from 13 onward, oh yeah, it's on Xbox 360 too. It's always been like, it was on Nintendo originally, now it was on Sony. Yeah, it was just, but
I also find it weird because I'm a really big Kingdom Hearts fan as well. What I find weird is how they made a very good point to put everything on PS4. So they did 1.5, 2.5 remix, like all of those on, they put all of that on PS4 as one disc, and then they have the 2.8 thing. And Kingdom Hearts 3 is actually coming out on Xbox One. So it's like, it's going to be really strange if people play, because they hear how awesome Kingdom Hearts is, and they have an Xbox, but they've never played Kingdom Hearts before. It's going to be really weird for them just to start with Kingdom Hearts 3, especially with the ridiculous story that game has across all those games. You know what I mean? Like 1 and 2 are your main lines, and those are cool. But then if you start playing the other ones, that's where shit gets crazy, like goes down some big rabbit holes and stuff. But yeah, it's always weird. And same thing with Metal Gear. Like Metal Gear 3, was never on Xbox. Metal Gear 4 was never on Xbox. 2 was. It was on Xbox, original Xbox back in the day. So 2 was on Xbox, 3 wasn't, 4 wasn't, but 5 was. Like, kind of weird, but I'm right there with you too, because also it's all RPGs. Xbox tried. They really did, but especially on 360, like when they got Blue Dragon and Lost Odyssey and Eternal Sonata, like they really tried, but Japan doesn't give a shit about an Xbox. Like, period. They don't give a shit about it. And I was shocked that, when they announced Final Fantasy was coming to Xbox, and especially Kingdom Hearts, like when that got shown and they were saying like, no, and then same thing with the Final Fantasy VII remake. Like, I believe it's Sony exclusive for a bit, but they never rolled out Xbox. And I'm like, that's like, it's just strange how they're doing it all, but whatever. I mean, I just wish everybody had a chance to play everything, but I also get, game companies not wanting to put a lot of money into putting a game on Xbox when in Japan that thing crashed and burned hard as hell.
Yeah, they don't. I don't even think it's broken 1 million. I don't think any of their stuff is broken like 1 million in Japan at all. Where like PS4 and like the Switches are going like crazy. They're having lotteries out there for like show up at this time, pick a number, and we'll lottery off these 10 Switches we have at stores. It's crazy how much they want, obviously, and how well like the Vita and the PSP and the 3DS did. Obviously, they're so much more of a mobile culture. It's shocking to see how well the PS4 is doing there still, and I understand that it's a Japanese company, but because they're so obsessed with the handheld culture, I mean, even Sony was struggling for a time. So for Xbox to come and be like, hey, we have this primarily Americanized console, they're kind of like, yeah, whatever, don't care, like give me the Switch or give me the PS4. That's what they've known. Obviously Japan kind of being the video game capital of the world, or at least was when everything started. They, at this point, I think anything that's similar to Xbox or anything like that, it's kind of like the iPhones. Like iPhones don't sell as well in Japan because they have all these crazy other phones. They still sell well, but they're kind of like, yeah, whatever, don't care. Give me whatever phone this is, because this is what works in our culture. It's really odd and interesting. And I lived in Japan as a kid, very young, on one of the Air Force bases. So it's interesting to have kind of that early history with Japan and be like, oh, okay, remembering meeting how they behave, kind of understanding where they come from slightly. Like I said, I was a little young. So there's only a few things that I remember picking up on as a kid.
That's still pretty awesome. Like, not most people can say that kind of stuff, right? Like, nothing wrong with that. My favorite thing is lately there was a picture that came out, because I don't know if this is Microsoft pushing this or retailers who bought Xboxes just trying to get rid of the Xboxes because nobody's buying them. There was a picture online in a Japanese retailer of people selling the Xbox One S like as a 4K Blu-ray player above it being an Xbox. Like it literally on the picture, there's a sign that's taped to the Xbox that says 4K HD Blu-ray player. And then in like smaller print below it says Xbox One S. Like, oh my God. But again, whatever you got to do to sell them, I don't think Microsoft gives a shit if that's what you have to put on the box. They just want you to sell consoles. They really don't care.
Yeah, like I said, especially with them being more mobile, if they want a home console that has that 4K HD Blu-ray player and they can get it that way and it's cheaper than maybe one that's standard, that probably is the best way to go.
Well, even now, like I remember when that first got announced, because I have a 4K TV, and I was looking, and when they announced it was like $300 and it was a 4K Blu-ray player, I was like, that's the cheapest 4K Blu-ray player you could buy. Like if you go look, and again, now things are changed. Like this year they've released newer models that are similar priced, but like at the time when that system came out, the next cheapest one that was true 4K, just like the Xbox One S was a $500 Samsung player. And I'm like, if Microsoft literally just put this in a little bit bigger print and sold them in the TV section, I bet they would sell a bunch. And when I worked at Best Buy, that's how we sold PS3s. A lot of them, like Blu-ray players. Like a lot of people, we would say, well, here's a Blu-ray player that's $300, or here's this PS3 that's $300 that has game system and blah, 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 blah. So, Sony knows what's up. They've done it for the longest time. And that's why I was shocked when PS4 Pro didn't have the 4K player built in. I was like, this is fucking Sony. Like, they invented Blu-ray. Why do they not have a 4K player in there? That's insane.
Yeah, you have the patent. Why aren't you using it?
Right. Like, you're letting somebody else pay you the royalties, and they're going to sell consoles. And some people literally will buy this console because of this feature. Yet, I'm sure it wouldn't even cost you guys that much money because you own the patent. Like, how could you not just put this in your system? It's just so strange. So, whatever. I mean, Sony came out and said like, oh, we believe digital is more of the future. And I get it, but I can tell you I've streamed 4K and I've put a 4K Blu-ray in, and 4K Blu-ray still looks better. It just does. Like the HDR is better. The audio is better. Like until streaming gets that good, people are still going to want that physical disc and everything just for the 4K stuff. 1080p, whatever. Stream that shit all day long. It's fine. You don't need to worry about buying regular Blu-rays anymore. Like, streaming has gotten good to that point. So
yeah, we need more bandwidth for the 4K, and I think that's something
100%.
I think Netflix has come out and said, they're like, yeah, we have 4K stuff, but depending on where you live, your bandwidth, you might not have enough to really get the best, experience out of it.
Well, also too, like, because like Netflix, Amazon, they have 4K content, and it does do HDR, and it has but also too audio wise, it's not the highest end surround. So if you have this badass surround sound system, it doesn't take advantage of that. Or also too, a lot of people now are starting to have caps on their internet, monthly, where they can only, they can't go over a certain amount per month, so they can't stream as much. So, I mean, it just depends on where you're at, what your situation is. And also people also don't give a shit about that and don't want 1,000 discs in their house. They'd rather just have the, everything on a digital storefront. So everybody's got their own personal preferences. So
absolutely,
it's all right. So as far as it goes now, obviously, like you said, your PlayStation 4 now, you're going to be getting a Switch this holiday. Are you still kind of in the RPG realm? Do you do any streaming online, or do you do any online gaming or anything?
Yeah, I pretty much, I have a hard time with the online stuff. I guess it sounds kind of old, but I'm not really big on competitiveness. Mm-hmm. And that's just, I'm just not a competing person, especially when it comes to games. It's outside of you talked about Tony Hawk, but, so I mainly my PS4 is mainly still my RPG machine. I'll play stuff online. I played Mass Effect Andromeda, which it's kind of funny that a lot of people think it's weird. I didn't play Mass Effect until 2 years ago, the trilogy. The PS3 era, I got the PS3 a couple months after it came out, strictly for Metal Gear Solid 4. I was like, right, I gotta play this game, has to happen. Played Metal Gear Solid 4, and I had some crazy stuff happen with my life and my family, and ended up having to get rid of the PS3, and I skipped the PS3 pretty much from 2008 until 2013. Then I rebought one, and I had to catch back up. So I spent most of the last, 3 years or so playing catch-up. I had to play the BioShock series, Catherine, Dragon Age. I had to play the Mass Effect trilogy because I'd never played it before. And then I was like, oh my god, I've been missing out on this series for forever. I had to play Skyrim, and Uncharted 1, 2, and 3, Telltale games, Final Fantasy 13. I had to play catch-up. And so now today, I finally got through all that backlog for the most part. Now I'm mainly kind of waiting on God of War. The only 2 games that I haven't played yet that are out that I really want to play is Nier Automata and then Hellblade. Those are my next 2 kind of I guess to-dos as soon as possible.
Both of them supposed to be really good. I personally haven't played them. Again, my PlayStation's mostly my exclusive machine. I played Uncharted 4. It was awesome. I beat Horizon. That was awesome. Didn't platinum it because it literally was going to take me double the amount of time to platinum the game. And I was like, nah, I'm good. So I just played and beat the story. Thought it was amazing. Actually, so far is my game of the year. Over Zelda, which some people find weird. But, the only thing I could say is everybody knew Zelda was going to be amazing, and it was. Not that many people thought Horizon was going to be as amazing, and it blew my expectations out of the water, so that's why it's my game of the year. However, I'm probably going to say differently by the end of the year, because Mario looks ridiculous, so, and even if it looks ridiculous and I expect it to be awesome, if it blows me away, which I'm thinking it will, hopefully I'm not overhyping it, but I haven't heard a single bad thing about Mario, so that's fine. So
they seem to have Mario in the bag when it comes to making them.
Yeah, well, the ones on Wii U were okay, but 3D Super Mario 3D World wasn't bad, but it wasn't I want that N64 style 3D Mario game again. That's what I want. Not 3D World was okay. It wasn't bad, but it was okay. New Super Mario Brothers, when they just went back to 2D, I was the first one I was cool. I was yeah, this is nice. But then when you made them again and again and again, I'm all right, I don't really want this, anymore. So, true 3D Mario, and then that E3 trailer, with the T-Rex and the Mario hat, I was what the hell am I watching right now? And then just seeing all the little things going on, I'm all right, this is it. So that's probably the next, there's a bunch of games coming out this year, but that might sway my vote for Game of the Year. Last question before I wrap things up, I have to ask, did you play Tony Hawk 5?
No, I didn't. That was, okay. That's strictly because, I saw it and it was just one of those gut feelings that I firmly believe sometimes certain series you need to stop, because I played Tony Hawk all the way up to Project 8, and all the games up until American Wasteland, I feel like all the Tony Hawk games had something to offer everybody. Right. It was something fun, addictive, co-op, whatever. And after American Wasteland, I was like, these games, they're just starting to do the same thing. They're not there's not a story. There's nothing going on here that I haven't already done. I'm 100%. If they announce tomorrow, all right, we're doing the PS2 to PS4, we're remastering 1 through American Wasteland, I'd pay like $300 for it. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but I'd be like, hell yes, take my money right now. You've got it. I will play these games insanely. But after that, I feel like 5 was them trying to go back to the golden days, but missing out on what actually made all those games good. And so I was just like, I saw the gameplay and I'm like, there's something off about this. And then the reviews came out and, IGN, IGN, kind of funny, GameSpot, all of them were just like, don't even bother. And I was like, it's a bummer because it wouldn't mind Tony Hawk coming back, but I was kind of like, just remake 1 through 4, even just give me HD versions of the full games and like give me Underground 2 and American Wasteland, and I'd be golden. I once again, I probably wouldn't leave the house for like a week just playing them, and it would be like I was in high school all over again.
Right. They remade 1 on Xbox, at least. They had like the Tony Hawk 1 HD remake, but it felt off. Like something didn't feel right. I was just like, I don't know about this. Like it just doesn't feel the same. Like again, it's the same thing with the Crash thing. Like, it wasn't necessarily harder. I just felt like there was just some timing that's off, and maybe that was just from me not playing it for a while. The only thing I could say is EA, just make Skate 4 and make everybody happy so we can just please be happy, because I still play Skate 3 to this day. When that thing became backward compatible on Xbox One, I was basically the happiest person in the world. I was like, this is, the one game you're talking about where you just play and it's mind-numbing and you just turn on a podcast and play? That's my Skate 3. I could play that game to this day, and I don't care. That game is so good and so fun still. So, if people want to play online with you on PlayStation, well, you don't really play that much online, but what is your PlayStation name in case people want to friend you?
Yeah, sure. It's COL, so C as in cat, OL, _ hedgehog, like the animal, 182.
And I'll also have show notes, that in the show notes as well, so that way people can check you out and everything. So, dude, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for sharing all your stories with us, and it was a really good time chatting with you.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. I appreciate it.
Thanks, man. All right, and again, thank you, Logan, for being on the show. Again, in the show notes, guys, I will have a link to his PlayStation profile, so that way you guys can friend him. Maybe he'll play some multiplayer stuff eventually. He also has a band, so I will have a link in the show notes there for that as well. Again, if you guys want to be on the show, share your stories just like he did, go ahead and send me a tweet at GUG Podcast on Twitter, or on my personal Twitter, which is at MitchPower1116. Again, don't forget to share the show with your friends, subscribe on iTunes, rate us, do all the normal things that people tell you to do if possible. If you don't, that's cool. I mean, I'm just happy you guys are here each and every week. So again, thank you guys so much for being listeners, for being here, downloading the show each and every week, showing your support, and I'll catch you guys next week with another guest. See ya.